Last time my family felt whole was the morning my dad died. One moment he was flipping pancakes, calling me his little princess. The next he was on the floor, clutching his chest, his face frozen in agony. I was 6, too young to understand but old enough to remember. Old enough to know that from that day forward, nothing would ever be the same. My name is Alice, 28 years old. I still remember it was a Sunday morning like any other, or at least it was supposed to be. The smell of butter and warm syrup filled the kitchen, mixing with a faint scent of Dad's aftershave. I remember the way the light streamed through the window, golden and soft, casting long shadows across the wooden floors. It was the kind of morning that made me believe nothing bad could ever happen. Dad, Mark, stood at the stove wearing that stupid one dad apron I got him for Father's Day. He always wore it when he made pancakes like it was some kind of sacred tradition. His dark hair was still messy from sleep, but his eyes sparkled as he flipped another pancake into the air. "Little star, get over here and help me with these masterpieces," he called, his voice warm, teasing. I giggled, abandoning my stuffed bunny on the couch and sprinting toward him. The spatula was in his hand, mid-air, ready to pass to me. His other hand ruffled my hair just like he always did, and then it happened. His fingers went slack. The spatula clattered against the floor, the sound too sharp, too loud. I looked up just in time to see his face twist, his eyes going wide, his jaw tightening. He staggered back, gripping his chest, his breathing suddenly ragged and uneven. "Dad?" My voice barely came out, small and uncertain. He didn't answer. His knees buckled, he hit the ground hard, one hand clawing at the counter, the other still clutching his chest. His lips parted, like he wanted to speak, but no sound came out. For a split second, our eyes met, and I saw it. The fear, the horrible, all-consuming terror of a man who realized he was dying. "Mark!" Mark's scream split the air, sharp and desperate. She ran toward him, pushing past me, her hands shaking as she grabbed his shoulders. He gasped, but it was different from before. Shallow, like he couldn't get enough air. "Breathe, just breathe," Mum begged, her voice breaking. I stood there, frozen, my tiny fingers gripping the edge of the counter, so tightly my knuckles turned white. This wasn't happening. This wasn't real. Dad was fine. He was just making pancakes. Then the sirens came. I remember the way they screamed through the quiet morning, the way the flashing red and blue lights painted the walls of our living room. I remember the paramedics bursting through the door, their voices overlapping as they asked my mom questions she couldn't answer. I remember someone pulling me back, telling me to give them space. And I remember Mum's sobs. They weren't loud, not at first, just short, gasping breaths, like she was choking on her own grief. Then one of the paramedics shook his head. Just once. Barely noticeable, but Mum saw, and suddenly she was screaming like the world had just ended. Because for us it had. I don't remember much after that, just flashes. The ambulance doors slamming shut, the empty house that felt like it would never be full again. Mum sitting on the couch, staring at nothing, and Dad, silent, still, gone. They took him away, but his absence stayed. It filled every empty chair, every unfinished conversation, every cold morning where the smell of pancakes no longer lingered. It was in the way Mom stopped humming while she set the table. It was in the way the kitchen felt colder without him in it. It was in the way the house seemed too big, too quiet, too unbearably empty. But the worst part? It wasn't just Dad who was gone, Mum was too. Not in the way death takes someone, no. Linda Carter was still very much alive, but the woman who used to kiss my scraped knees, who took me in at night with silly bedtime stories, who used to whisper, "Good night, my little star," before switching off my nightlight. She died with him. She was there, but she wasn't. She would look at me, but she wouldn't really see me. And for the first time in my life, I felt it, the weight of being invisible. They say time heals all wounds. That's a lie. Time doesn't heal, it just stretches the pain out, makes it quieter, duller. Until one day, you realize that the wound never really closed, it just scabbed over, waiting for something or someone to rip it open again. For me, that someone was Ryan, and it started with my mother. A year after my father's death, Linda got married to another man. I stood beside her in a stiff, uncomfortable dress as she said her vows to David Miller, a man with warm eyes and a kind smile. He wasn't my dad. He never tried to be, but he was a good man. And for a while, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was a fresh start, a chance to feel like a family again. I was wrong. Because it wasn't long before Mum got pregnant. At first, I was excited. I'd always wanted a sibling, someone to talk to share secrets with, to make the house feel less empty. "You're going to be the best big sister," David told me one night, ruffling my hair. But Mum never said anything like that. She was glowing, radiant, happier than I had seen her in a long time. But not because of me, never because of me. All her excitement, all her love was for the baby growing inside her. For Ryan... When Ryan was born, I became a ghost. I don't mean that figuratively. One day, I was Alice Linda's daughter. The next, I was just the girl who happened to live in the same house as her and Ryan. Mum quit her job to take care of him full-time. She spent hours cooing over him, rocking him in her arms, whispering to him like he was the most precious thing in the world. And maybe he was... to her. I remember standing in the doorway one night, watching as she gently ran her fingers through Ryan's hair while he slept. I tried to remember the last time she did that to me. I couldn't. But I could remember the first time I realized that my mother, the woman who had once held me the same way, whispered to me the same way, was gone. It was a simple moment, one that should have been insignificant. I had a fever. It wasn't the worst I'd ever had, but I was shaking, sweating, my head pounding so hard I thought it might split open. I walked into the living room where Mum was sitting with Ryan on her lap. "Mom, I don't feel good." My voice was hoarse, weak. She didn't even look at me. "Ryan's sleeping, Alice," she said flatly. "Don't wake him up." I don't know why that was the moment that broke me. Maybe because it was so casual, so dismissive, like I wasn't even worth the effort of concern. I stood there for a few seconds, waiting, hoping that she would change her mind, look up, see me. She didn't. So I turned around, walked to my room and tucked myself in. And for the first time, I took care of myself. Because no one else would. It wasn't just one. It was every time, every scraped knee, every bad day at school, every time I needed help with homework. She was always too busy. Ryan needs me. Ryan had a rough night. Ryan isn't feeling well. There was always an excuse. But when it was me, there was nothing. The only time she paid attention to me was when it had something to do with Ryan. "Alice, go grab Ryan's blanket. Alice, help me change Ryan's diaper. Alice, be a good sister and clean up Ryan's toys." I was 8 years old when I realized my mother didn't love me the way she loved him. I was 10 when I stopped trying to change that, because by then it was too obvious to ignore, especially when she took away the one thing that was still mine. I should have known something was wrong the moment Mom made my favorite meal for dinner. She hadn't cooked for me in years. It was always quick, effortless meals for me, mac and cheese, frozen dinners, while Ryan got home cooked meals made from scratch. But that night, she made spaghetti and meatballs, the kind Dad used to make. "Alice," she said, her voice too soft, too careful. "We need to talk." I felt it then, that cold, sinking feeling in my gut. "Ryan's getting older," she continued, twirling pasta around her fork. "He needs more space." I already knew where this was going. "We're moving you into the guest room." The guest room? The one that barely fit a bed, let alone anything else. The one with a single, tiny window that barely let in any light. But... my voice cracked. "That's my room. Ryan needs it more." That was it. Not an apology. Not a discussion. Just a statement. Ryan needs it more, and I needed nothing. I packed up my things that night. David found me halfway through, stuffing clothes into a box, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold on to anything. "Alice?" His voice was gentle, careful. What's going on? I wanted to tell him everything. How I felt invisible. How my mother only had room for one child and it wasn't me. How I could feel myself disappearing little by little, day by day. But I didn't. 'Cause what was the point? Mom wants me to move rooms, I muttered instead. David's jaw tightened. I thought, hoped, that maybe, just maybe, he would say something, that he would fight for me. But instead he let out a long breath and ran a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, kid," he said. I'll try to talk to her. But we both knew it wouldn't change anything. So I nodded, picked up my box, and walked into the tiny windowless space that would be my new home. The door closed behind me, and with it, so did the last bit of hope I had left. I learned something early on in life. If no one fights for you, you fight for yourself. And if no one loves you enough to choose you, you walk away before they have the chance to remind you that you were never worth choosing. I was done waiting for my mother to see me, but I wasn't done fighting, not yet. David saw it, the way I was fading into the background, the way my mother pulled further and further away from me, like I was a burden she had to endure, rather than a daughter she wants. I think he wanted to fix it. I think at some point he actually believed he could. That's why he started taking me to karate lessons. Self-defense is important, he said one day after I came home with bruises on my arm from a couple of kids at school who thought I was too quiet, too weird, too easy to push around. I knew better. He wasn't just talking about school bullies, he was talking about life. He sat through every lesson, cheered the loudest when I earned my belts, told me he was proud of me every time I walked off the mat, sweat dripping down my face, my knuckles red from hitting the training pads. I think, in his own quiet way, he was trying to give me something my mother never would, the belief that I was worth something. But no matter how hard he tried to hold me up, Mom always found a way to push me back down. I don't know when David started saving money for me. Maybe it was the first time he saw me pack my own lunch for school because Mom had forgotten. Maybe it was the night she made me move out of my bedroom for Ryan. Maybe it was the moment he realized that, no matter what, I was never going to be her priority. Either way, he saved. And one night, when I was 16, he handed me a folder filled with college brochures. "You can go anywhere, kiddo," he said. "I've been saving up. You don't have to stay here. You don't have to..." He hesitated. "You don't have to keep waiting for things to change." I almost cried, not because of the money, not because of the chance to leave, but because it was the first time in years that someone made me feel like I mattered. And of course, Mum ruined it. She found the folder a week later. And just like that, everything exploded. "Are you kidding me, David?" she shouted, slamming the folder onto the table. "Ryan is going to need that money." David's expression darkened. Ryan is 8. And Alice is being selfish. That was it. That was the moment I knew. It wasn't just that Mum loved Ryan more, she resented me. She resented me for existing, for taking up space, for needing anything at all. "You are unbelievable," David snapped, rubbing a hand down his face. "Alice deserves a future. She deserves a chance. Ryan deserves one too," Mum shrieked. "Ryan doesn't need anything right now. Alice is leaving for college soon. And she'll be fine. Fine." That was what I was to her. Not her daughter, not someone worth fighting for, just fine. David didn't back down, not that night, not for weeks after, but it didn't matter. Mom was relentless. She pushed, manipulated, twisted the situation until David was exhausted from trying, until he finally gave up, and I never forgot. I left home the moment I could. The day my acceptance letter to New York University came in the mail, I booked a bus ticket, packed a single suitcase, and walked out of that house like I'd never lived there at all. Mom barely looked up from her phone. Ryan didn't even bother to say goodbye. Only David hugged me at the door, pressing a wad of cash into my palm before I stepped onto the porch. "If you ever need anything, you call me," he said. I nodded, but I never did. Because I wasn't looking back. College was everything, home wasn't. Freedom. Independence. A place where I wasn't just some extra body taking up space. I worked 3 jobs, lived off instant noodles and dollar store coffee, but I was happy. Because for the first time, I belonged somewhere. And while I was working my ass off, building something real, Ryan was wasting his life away by the time I graduated. He was 19 and still living at home, not in college, not working, just sitting in his room, glued to a computer screen, living off of the money Mum kept throwing at him. And the worst part? She was proud of him. "Ryan is so smart," she told me over the phone one day. "He just hasn't found the right opportunity yet." I almost laughed. He wasn't looking for an opportunity, he was looking for an excuse, and she was handing them to him on a silver platter. I was 24 the last time I spoke to my mother before everything fell apart. She called me, which was rare. I thought maybe, just maybe, she had finally realized how much she had pushed me away. I was wrong. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, voice dripping with fake warmth. I waited, because people like my mother don't call unless they want something. "Ryan needs a little help," she continued. "I was thinking since you're doing so well in New York, maybe you could send some money home." I hung up, and I didn't answer when she called back, or when she texted, or when she emailed, because I had fought hard for the life I built, and I wasn't about to burn it down for a family that never wanted me in it. The difference between me and Ryan was simple. I fought for every single thing I had. He waited for it to be handed to him, and when it wasn't, he collapsed. I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning, because one day, Mum was going to push me too far. One day, she was going to say the wrong thing. One day, she was going to make me realize that I never really had a mother at all, and when that day came, I was going to walk away forever. I always knew my mother didn't love me the way she loved Ryan, but I just realized she only loved money and Ryan. When David died, my mother wasn't grieving a husband, she was grieving a paycheck. I was at work when my phone rang. The name on the screen made my stomach twist. Mom. She never called, not unless she wanted something. I almost let it go to voicemail. I should have. But some stupid part of me, some naive, pathetic part of me, thought maybe, just maybe, she was calling because she actually wanted to talk to me. So I answered. And the first thing I heard wasn't, "Hi, Alice." It wasn't, "How are you?" It was sobbing. I froze. "Mom?" My voice was cautious, unsure. "He's gone." Her voice cracked, shaking with something raw and broken. "David's gone, Alice." The world tilted. David. The only person who had ever fought for me. The only reason I had survived that house at all. Gone. What happened? Heart attack. A shaky breath. At work. They couldn't save him. I gripped the edge of my desk, trying to steady myself. David was dead. I couldn't process it. Didn't want to, because if I did, I would have to accept that the only real parent I ever had was never coming back. And then Mum's voice changed. It was subtle. A shift. The grief in her tone dulled, replaced with something else. Something calculated. "Alice, I need your help." I closed my eyes. There it was. The real reason she called. "Ryan is struggling," she continued, her voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "We're barely getting by. I don't know what to do." There it was. She wasn't calling because she missed me. She wasn't calling because she needed support. She was calling because she needed money. And like the idiot I was, I gave it to her. At first, it felt right. David had taken care of me. Maybe in some twisted way, this was my chance to pay it forward. I sent $1,500 every month, thinking it was going toward the mortgage, the bills, the things that kept the house running. It never even crossed my mind that I was the only one actually working, but I should have known, because when it comes to my mother, I am always the last to know the truth. 6 months passed before I went back. I wasn't planning to stay long, just a weekend, just enough time to make sure Mum was okay. But when I pulled up to the house, I knew something was wrong. It wasn't the overgrown lawn or the peeling paint. It was the music. Loud, obnoxious. The kind that rattled the windows and sent a sick feeling crawling up my spine. I stepped inside, and the smell hit me first. Beer, stale food, something sour and rotten underneath it all. This wasn't a home, this was a frat house. And in the middle of it, sprawled across the couch, was Ryan, not Mum. Not grieving, just Ryan. Wearing stained sweatpants, a controller in one hand and a beer in the other. And beside him, a girl I had never seen before, legs curled up, scrolling through her phone like she owned the place. "Who the hell are you?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended. She looked up, smirked. "Oh, you must be Alice." My stomach twisted. "And you are?" She stretched, lazily, like a cat that had made itself comfortable in someone else's home. "Tiffany," she grinned. I turned to my brother, my fully grown, jobless, useless brother. "Where's Mom?" He didn't even look away from his game. Out. Out where? He shrugged. Grocery shopping or getting her nails done? I don't know. Does it matter? I stared at him. The same brother who was supposedly struggling, the same brother I was sending money to help support. Are you kidding me? My voice was sharp, disbelief laced into every syllable. I've been sending Mum money every month, Ryan. Where the hell is it going? Tiffany snorted. Oh, sweetheart. Something about the way she said it made my blood go cold. You didn't seriously think that money was for bills, did you? I felt my heart drop. She leaned forward, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her phone's screen. Ryan told me you were naive, but damn! She laughed like it was funny. Like I was the punchline to some sick joke. You've been paying for our beer, babe. I don't remember walking to the kitchen. I don't remember yanking open drawers, searching for anything that could prove me wrong. I only remember the bank statements, sitting on the counter, hundreds of dollars spent on takeout, alcohol, video games. I picked them up, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold on to them. That's when Mum walked in, grocery bags in hand, like she hadn't just spent 6 months stealing from me. She saw the papers, saw my face, and sighed like she was annoyed. Alice! I shoved the papers toward her. Explain this. She set the bags down, rubbing her temples. You're overreacting. Overreacting, I laughed. A hollow, bitter sound. I sent you money, Mum. I thought I was helping you. And you were, she said simply. Ryan needed it. Ryan, it always came back to him. Ryan needed it, I repeated, my voice rising. For what? His fucking PlayStation subscription? Watch your mouth, Alice. That was when I snapped. Because she had stolen from me, lied to me, used me, and all she cared about was my tone. You used me? My voice was shaking. I thought... My throat closed. I thought I was finally enough for you. I thought maybe, for once, I was the child you wanted. And then she said it, the words that killed whatever love I had left for her. You were never as important as Ryan. Silence. Heavy, suffocating. You never will be. There it was, the truth. Raw. Ugly. I nodded. Once. Twice. Then I walked past her. Past Ryan. Past Tiffany. Out the door. And I didn't look back. Not when she called my name. Not when Ryan laughed. Not when my heart felt like it was being ripped from my chest. Because if she didn't need me, if she never had, then I didn't need her either. I walked out that door and didn't look back. Not when my mother called my name. Not when Ryan laughed behind me. Not when my heart screamed for closure I knew I would never get. Because there was nothing left to save. The first thing I did when I got home was open my banking app. I stared at the screen, at the automatic transfer that had been draining $1,500 from my account every month. One swipe. That's all it took. One tap, one confirmation, and the lifeline they had been sucking from me was gone. Cancel recurring payment. Just like that, I was free. Or so I thought. The next morning, my phone exploded. 15 missed calls, 30 unread messages, all from Mom. I didn't read them at first. I let them pile up, let them drown in their own desperation. But curiosity is a funny thing, so I scrolled. Alice, there must be some mistake. The money didn't come through. Call me back, sweetheart. I need to talk to you. Ryan is struggling. He's been so stressed. You can't just cut us off like this. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. She still thought she could manipulate me. But I wasn't that girl anymore. Then came Ryan's messages. At first, he played the same game. Come on, Alice. You know Mum needs that money. We're family. I get that you're mad, but don't take it out on her. She's been through so much. But when I didn't respond, the mask slipped. You selfish bitch. You think you're better than us. You're nothing. We don't need you. We never did. And the last one, the one that made me realize just how far gone he really was. Rot in hell. I stared at the words, letting them sink in. Then I blocked his number, blocked my mother's too, and for the first time in my life, I breathed. The months passed, slowly at first. I kept waiting for the guilt to creep in, for that little voice in the back of my head to whisper that I was a terrible daughter, a terrible sister. But it never came. Instead, I slept better, ate better. I started saving money for myself, not for them, for me. I put away every dollar that used to disappear into their pockets. And when I checked my savings account one morning and saw the growing balance, I did something I hadn't done in years. I smiled. Because I was finally living for myself. A year passed before I saw them again. Well, not them, just her, Tiffany. I was in line at the grocery store, scrolling through my phone, when I heard a familiar voice. "Do you want a receipt?" Flat, emotionless. I looked up, and there she was, Tiffany, but not the Tiffany I remembered. Gone was the perfect hair, the smug smirk, the designer nails. She looked tired, worn out in a way that had nothing to do with makeup and everything to do with life kicking her in the teeth. Her uniform was wrinkled, her name tag slightly askew. She didn't recognize me at first, not until I handed her my card, then her eyes flickered. And for a second, just a second, I saw it, the shame, the realization. She swallowed. Alice. I tilted my head. Tiffany. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, an apology, maybe, a defense. But in the end, she just sighed. "That'll be $24.50. I tapped my card, waited for the beep, and then I smiled. Not cruelly, not triumphantly, just at peace. Because I didn't need revenge. This was enough. I grabbed my bag, turned, and walked away, not once looking back. I used to think cutting ties would be painful, that it would leave me hollow, bleeding, searching for something to fill the space they once occupied. But I wasn't empty, I was full of hope, full of possibility, full of a future I had built without them. I used to think I needed their love to be whole. But the truth is, I was always whole. They were just the pieces I didn't need. No revenge, no argument. Alice won by living better. What about you? What do you think of this ending?